to hear what I'd love to be telling you in person, at first hand. But unfortunately, we've got to do this by webinar. But I want to talk to you about what I think is one of the most exciting programs we have or have ever had in DCU. So for the course of our webinar this morning, I'm going to give you some details about the course itself. But this course has been developed in partnership with Board BIA, and Rory MacDonald of Board BIA will talk for a few minutes after me. And then we thought it would be very interesting for you to hear from somebody who did the course and started in 2017, the last time the course, and the only time the course was run, and who has just graduated and has experienced the whole thing from application through to graduation, and now a high-powered job in a big, thriving, dynamic food company. So if I may, I will get going now. I thought I'd begin with a little bit, just say that I'm the program chair. And my name is Peter Robbins, and I'm interested or have been engaged for many, many years in programs around design thinking and innovation. And I've worked very closely with Board BIA to make this a capability program for the industry. So this program is part of a suite of programs that have been designed by Board BIA to address specific capability issues in this vital industry. But let's just start by talking for a moment about the food and drink industry. It has experienced phenomenal growth in the last decade. Exports are up by 64%, which represents well over 5 billion euros of growth. And Irish farmers and Irish food companies and Irish beverage companies have shown wonderful innovation in opening up new markets at home and abroad. But now the industry is at an inflection point, a point where simply doing more of the same is unlikely to sustain the growth and the jobs that are expected from this industry. Foodwise 2020 is a strategy document that commits the industry to ambitious growth targets. And equally, the Future of Jobs strategy also commits the industry to sustainable employment and a great deal of growth. So Board BIA's strategy is to deliver this growth through what they refer to as differentiated, sustainable growth. We will come back to that, all right? But let me just share a couple of thoughts with you as to why it just can't simply be business as usual in the industry. There's been a huge support, a surge in support for political and economic insularity, with more and more people advocating protectionist measures in big markets. The UK is our nearest and most important market, and losing them from the EU is a significant blow from the industry. We're also facing more and more competition in all of the sectors, in food, in beverage, and in horticulture. And that's why the strategy for Board BIA has to be underpinned by differentiation and insight. Regulatory compliance is getting more and more time-consuming and costly. And the biggest trend of all is the one of sustainability and our need to balance the requirements of the food industry with the Sustainable Development Goals. Board BIA's Origin Green is an award-winning example of how to do this and bring this to life. Then we have the issue of many markets are moving away from beef and a trend towards flexitarianism or vegetarianism. And then, if that wasn't enough, we have COVID-19. So all of these factors contribute to an operating environment that really needs innovation. It needs people who can see beyond the obvious solutions, who can think more widely and generate possibilities that are novel, original, appropriate, and scalable. And that's why we have designed this program to focus on insight and innovation. This is the suite of modules that you will be learning on this program. So it's focused on the strategy of innovation, how to lead teams, people, organization, even industries, on entrepreneurship, how to convert ideas into action. And then, of course, because it's got to be differentiated, we have a strong focus on marketing, how to build unique and compelling brands. Those brands have to be founded on some penetrating, actionable customer insight. So we have a strong focus on that. And then we're interested in market and consumer research, how the digital age can enhance product innovation and consumer experience. The module on consumer innovation adoption looks at how we can make people lean forward and engage with the new products and services that are developed. And then an end-to-end process for facilitating innovation is design thinking, something of which no doubt you have heard, but our program foregrounds design thinking as a way from going from the heartbeat of an idea right through to the high street of a launch. We're interested in brand strategy and development and the practical innovation application of innovation concepts. So of course, we don't want to teach you novel frameworks and categorizations and ways of looking at things unless they can help guide your managerial action in business. When you're working in innovation, any innovation project falls down into three different sections, three clear, distinct divisions, three parts to any innovation project. The first part is the generation of novel original ideas. It's the most important phase, creating ideas that are distinctive and compelling. And so we have scaffolded our project with these three pillars. So the first phase is around customer insight. How can we finesse underserved, unserved, unknown, tacit, unspoken needs from customers? Entrepreneurship, about how can we galvanize resources and make things happen in an organization. Design thinking around how can we make sure that the organization is speaking the same language around design, around innovation and making things happen. And then we've put in this module around reflective leadership, because sometimes when you come into a company and you are tasked to be an agent of change, it does demand elements of leadership about framing things. I mean, it sounds simple to call it storytelling, but it's about positioning ideas in a way that galvanizes support. So this module on reflective leadership helps you do things like teamwork, managing stakeholders and that kind of thing. Then we move into innovation strategy and market research, trying to figure out the scale and the demand for a business idea, and creativity in business, how to enhance the culture of creativity in business. And then looking at the digital age, digital transformation, digital channels, digital customer experience enhancements. The final bit then is how do we get people to buy these things? How do we get across the chasm and find early adopters and move products and services like something like protein bars into the mainstream? And that has to be very carefully done with a good, strong brand strategy. And in most of the cases of the companies with whom you'll be working, they'll be working globally. So there's global marketing understanding going on. And then, as I said, the practical application of innovation concepts. A master's is structured with 90 credits. So many of you have recently undertaken your primary degree in the last 5 years or so. And so you'll know about the credit system. So these modules are usually either 5 credit or 7.5 credit modules. And all of these together will add up to 60 credits. And the final 30 credits will be a major capstone dissertation about generating a new product, service, or experience for the company for whom you're working. When we're looking at the assignments that we'll be giving you, we have the opportunity here to try and triage them towards really key areas in the industry around sustainability, about geographic expansion and digital opportunities in the business, but fundamentally around insight-led innovation. This is a nice graphic of how the program will unfold, the first 12 weeks will be spent inside DCU. That's, hoping that the lockdown is relieved a little bit, but we imagine that we'll be teaching a few modules there, doing a design thinking boot camp, getting you to know each other and doing a couple of the modules. At the end of this phase, we will be going to each of the companies with the whoever's going to be placed there, and running an all-day workshop around their ambition for innovation, their intentions, their budgets, their processes. And we'll be doing a workshop to help create a roadmap for each of the companies that we're working with, to show them how you can help manage their goals, and to kind of anoint you as the person who will be the champion for this. Then the second phase is a standard semester, and you'll be working in the placement, and then a couple of days, about 4 days a month, you'll be spending in DCU doing modules of the ones that we've described. Then the summer, the placement will continue, and then you come into the third semester, which will be August, December of next year, and there are 3 more academic modules, and then that is completed with, at the end of that, you're supervised for a dissertation. The work placement will continue for 15 months, and at the end of the work placement, you will be presenting the company with a very well-reasoned roadmap for innovation for the future. So let me just briefly sum up by saying we've got DCU is a great place to do it because we have super resources. We have a technology partner called FutureLearn, which is the biggest online teaching organization in the world. And we have creative things like the Lego Serious Play Lab. We have a fabulous co-working space called Talent Garden. And then we have the DCU Alpha Campus, which is an incubator and accelerator hub for new businesses. So there's it's a terrific environment and culture of energy, adrenaline, and innovation. And then we've got so that's creativity in the content and maybe the locations and the atmosphere we'll create. But then there's creativity in the design of the program. And let me, show you that, we'll be taking you to leading places to see how innovation takes place in some of the most successful international companies who happen to be located in Ireland. So we'll be going to innovation hubs, among others, Diageo. We will be introducing you to Fjord, which is Ireland's, one of the world's biggest design thinking agencies. It was bought a few years ago by Accenture, and they have a hub on Grand Canal Dock. You'll be learning from the people who are right at the cutting edge of practice. We're also going to be invited by some of the alumni of the course to go and visit their places. We'll be going to Jemison and Kerry Foods, and hopefully to Glanbia, and definitely to Ornua, to get a sense of how these companies manage the process, how they interpret the trends and move from idea to some tangible innovation asset that's been tested. And one of the important things at the very beginning is to understand how supermarkets buy, the axis on which they make judgments to give you listings for new products, because often you'll hear people say that innovation isn't innovators innovating, it's customers adopting. And some of the toughest customers are the Tesco buyers or the Aldi buyers. And so we begin early on with a workshop on understanding the categories that you might be in and how to designate category captaincy and sort of things you need to be aware of in order to strengthen, maintain, and maybe consolidate your listings in supermarkets. So that brings me to the end of my 10 minutes. So the next steps for you are to email your application to Board B. Many of the names I see on the side of the panel here have already done that, and thank you for that. We will then be sort of triaging the applications, and we will call a number of people for interview. That piece is still under discussion as to how we can do a competency center interview without physically meeting you or you coming to any location. but we will figure that out. So the next phase will be, you'll hear from us, hopefully to say that we'd love to meet you, or otherwise to say that because of the high standard of the applicants, we haven't been able to move you to the next phase. And then we'll manage an interview process. And then in early July, knowing that many of you would have to give 8 weeks notice in your current roles, we will make our offers of places. So I think that is my final slide. So Sarah, if you could unmute people, if anybody is still there, can we just open it up for any questions? Looking for questions.
Hello, may I have a question for you? Yeah. Yep. So my name is Sao. I'm from Vietnam, and I have a question about the documents for application. The first one is that I would love to know whether you have any requirements for CV or for cover letter, or if I wonder if I can instead write a cover letter. I will write something like a statement of purpose to show my motivations and detailing my reasons to apply for the program. Is that okay? In the first question, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, that's the first question.
Yeah, that's the first question. And the second one is that I also read the announcement on website that the candidate will have to available to attend the university for the interview, but I'm wondering if I can conduct the interview through online, or I have to like face-to-face interview in the university. So that is the two questions that I'm wondering.
Okay,
so
great, not at all, and thank you for the questions. Yeah. So let me answer the second one first. We won't be calling anybody to the university for interview. So everything we do, unless things change very drastically, but your location will not be a barrier. We will be doing everything online. So the interview will not take place in DCU, and we'll change our website to reflect that. So that's the first thing. It'll be all online. The second thing is we've asked people to write a letter of application kind of to introduce themselves, and if you call it a statement of purpose, then that's probably a good description of what we're looking for. About we're really trying to find out, one of the things that's clearly important is, are people interested in the industry and interested in the area of food, and have they some history of being involved in that somehow or other, and a history of innovation and that kind of stuff. People are interpreting that application letter in different ways. And it's certainly open for you to do that. So I think your idea of saying a statement of purpose to talk about your motivation and your resilience and your determination, that would all be perfectly fine.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I might just see then if we have Rory on the line.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Rory. How are you?
How are you? I'm just going to start my video here.
Well, I have a couple of slides for you. Are you okay if I? And that's the first one.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, I'll talk very briefly.
Maybe I should start with this one.
Well, that's me. Yeah. So yeah, I'm Rory MacDonald from the Thinking House in Bordbia. We're the effectively we're the Insight and Innovation team for the Irish food industry. We work with client companies, that some of the ones that Peter has mentioned, the Glambias, the Kerry Foods, etc. Our mission is very much to put the consumer at the heart of the innovation process. So we are the kind of champions of this particular MSc. And this is our second iteration of the MSc. We're very much looking forward to getting it moving again. We've had great success and great buy-in with the Irish food industry in terms of adopting the principles of design thinking on innovation. And that's very much our mission, is to make sure that Irish food companies and beverage companies, when they innovate, they put the consumer at the heart of everything they do. So that's our background, and that tells you a little bit about me. We work around the world. We're an export-led country, and this piece of work is very much at the heart of what Board B's own remit is, to champion best practice in innovation for food producers and those exporting globally. We believe that if we put the consumer and the market at the heart of what our companies do, they will have greater success in the marketplace. And we do that through a huge amount of consumer research and market research. On the design thinking side of things, we're very much engaged on the ethnographic side of the research process. And that was probably the beginnings of why we were interested in developing a formal MSc in the first place. We're interested in producing graduates for industry who think in the way that we think, who believe that the consumer and consumer insight is critical to the success of innovation in general. And we believe in working with companies in a partnership approach to really help them deliver successful food and beverage products for the market. We're inspired by the best practice of the likes of Unilever, Diageo, P&G, the big FMCG players globally, who've all adopted similar approaches to design thinking over the years. And most of the team in Board B who work on this program will have had experience of working on that side of the market as well. So we bring a wealth of experience. Board B itself as an organization, as I say, is dedicated to export success. And we found over time that the more you know about your consumer and the more you know about your market, and the more you apply those learnings and insights to the innovation process, the more successful our exporters are. And that's why this is such an important program for us. So I think that's enough for me for now, Peter. We may have one more slide. I'm not too sure.
We do. We have it. Sorry, excuse me. We have a slide around the companies that participated last time.
Yeah. So just to give you a flavour of who we worked with last time, and I'll start at the very top there. Silver Hill Farm, the biggest exporter globally of duck produce, and so ducks are exported from Ireland to all over the world in a very premium way. So you might find Silver Hill ducks in high-end restaurants in Singapore, in the Far East, in Asia, in high-end restaurants domestically, and in food service and retail domestically, and also in other export markets. You've just jumped ahead of me there, Peter. So Silver Hill were one of our partner clients last time, and we would have worked with them on a number of new products. Likewise, Glanbia, we worked with on the Chinese market in recent times, and again through the MSc, looking at the whole area of healthy snacking. You can see there the Shed Distillery on the far left of the map, based in County Leitrim. We've worked with their innovation team, and again through the program we had a student placed there who would have talked through and worked through the innovation program for whiskey. And some of the others on the map there, we do produce a lot of meat in Ireland and dairy in Ireland, so that's our two biggest sectors. So Keypack, Don Meats, Bandon Co-op, Oliver Carty and Glanbia are all in either the beef or dairy sectors. And a range of their innovations have been targeting the food service space in particular, and again trying to ensure that there's a real opportunity for growth on those innovation projects by grounding things in the consumer, in consumer insight. But I suppose one of the interesting ones to think about for us as well is Camille and O'Brien's. They are restaurant chains, as I'm sure some of you are familiar with. And we know, at the moment that whole area of food service is in particular focus given the crisis that we're in and the fact that none of us can visit restaurants again. So we do see, once things get back to a bit more like normality, innovation being absolutely critical to kind of driving growth and keeping Ireland at the forefront of the food service sector. So this program in particular will be important that we understand how we can innovate in restaurants, in chains, in food service spaces, and we definitely see that as being part of what we do over the coming months. So very much these are examples of companies where students have been placed, real success stories, and in a number of those cases, we have students who have ended up working full-time with the companies as a result of their work. So thank you, Peter. I'm happy to answer any questions, and hopefully that gives you a flavour for Board Bia's involvement and why this is such an important initiative for us.
Thanks a million, Rory. Sarah, can you unmute? Have you unmuted everybody?
Sorry, yeah, everybody's unmuted now.
Hello?
Hi, yeah, go ahead.
Hi. So my name is Jenny, and I just had a question for Rory in particular. With the kind of placements, I read on the website that you kind of work with a number of food, drink, and horticultural companies. Is it primarily food, or does it just kind of depend based off of the intake and the experience, and like how you would match applicants with placements?
Well, it's primarily food. Board Bia primarily works with food, only works with food, bev, and horticulture client companies. And the mix tends to be more food companies than the other two sectors, simply because of the nature of the shape of our exports. So we're here to support exports from Ireland, as I say. So I think it broadly speaking splits down about 80% food companies, maybe 20%, 20 to 30% the other two.
Okay, thank you.
So the program requires people to be in a company and have a role that's designated in that company and help them promote the innovation priorities of that company and bring them to fruition. So this could be a good time to ask Orla to talk about what it was like applying and the process and the program and what's happened since. Is that okay? Unless there are any further questions for Rory.
Perfect.
Rory, thank you very much. Orla, if you're still there.
I am indeed.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, how is everybody? Nice to have a bit of socialising of a Wednesday morning, I have to say. Makes a nice change from the last few weeks working from home. So yeah, I'm happy to go ahead if you can hear me okay.
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Great. So I suppose just sitting through the last maybe 20 minutes, half an hour has really brought me back to my own application process, which would have been over 2 years ago now at this stage. And the ins and outs of the process and looking back at sort of my own experience with it. And I'd love to be able to help and to contribute to anybody who's listening today, and hopefully shed a bit of light on my experience of the course and the program, and of course then answer any questions that anybody might have at the end. I think it's a lovely opportunity this for people to air out any questions that they might have. So I think in terms of my own background, first of all, it might be interesting to note that my background has been in food, and my primary degree would have actually been in food science, so not connected with, I suppose, design or branding or marketing or business even. So I think my food science background, and then I had about 7 years food industry experience. So food was always my love and my passion, and I knew it was the area that I wanted to work in. So my role in the industry was in product development. and in, I suppose, project management of new product development within the food industry. So a lot of that, and a lot of what that involved, was quite linear, and often, I suppose, what the food manufacturer could do, often rather than maybe what the consumer wanted or what the consumer needed. And I suppose this was an ongoing trend, in my experience, in working in the industry. So when this course popped up on my radar over 2 years ago, it really, I suppose, seemed to me like it was a course unlike any other, in that it identified that the food industry in Ireland, which is such an important and thriving industry for us, had identified through Board BIA and through the programme, had identified a gap potentially in focusing in on consumer needs and wants, and gaps in what consumers could access, and using, I suppose, a very creative way of problem solving through the modules in the course. It was something that really appealed to me, to learn how to innovate in a very different way. So while I applied for the course, and went through all of the stages, I think it was clear that it's as I say, it isn't a course unlike any other. It has a very practical element. The link with Board BIA and the food industry was one that really appealed to me, because it meant that I didn't have to leave the workplace to pursue my further education. And this was a really fundamental consideration for me, because I understood that, keeping a link with industry while potentially studying further is a real asset to have, that you're not kind of stepping away from the workplace. So that industry link, the link with Board BIA, and then the very practical yet creative nature of the course really appealed to me. As a foodie, as a creative person, it was something that I thought ticked a lot of boxes, and I wanted to find out more about. So thankfully I was successful with my application process, and what I started with 9 others in the end of 2017 would have been our inductions, and then we would have been placed into industry then the start of 2018. So the course really taught me so much in terms of branding, insight generation, entrepreneurship, all of the things that Peter covered previously in the modules. And I think that was a lovely slide summarising the modules. And even looking at it now, it's such an interesting course. But more than that, I think the course taught me a lot about myself, but about mindset and creativity, and sort of opening up my mind to a new way of looking at the world, focusing on consumers, focusing on their needs, their wants, and identifying opportunities that I would not have seen previously. And I think this is something that the course really, really excelled in. So there is the support of the Board BIA and the industry focus and all of those lovely things. But I definitely think one of the key attributes for me was how it helped me to learn a new way, essentially, of innovating and problem solving that I don't think is available in other master's programs, certainly not to the extent, in my opinion, of this program. So I'm pleased to say, obviously, as Peter said, that I've graduated from the course, having learned lots and covered lots of really interesting modules, but also applying most of what I learned and most of what we learned as a cohort. We were in a very privileged position to be able to apply to our work placements and to the industry that we were working in. So a lot of the assignments that we did in the program directly contributed to the workplace. And then my final year dissertation, so the capstone project that Peter spoke about earlier, I was again able to apply that to the company that I was working for, and I managed to identify ways of working in the NPD process of the company that I was working for but doing it through design thinking to create more innovative outputs that, as Peter indicated earlier, that consumers really want and that they will adopt. So in terms of my role now at the moment, I recently started just earlier this year with Valio Foods. So again, I think just to say that I genuinely believe that without this course, I know I wouldn't have had the skills and the skill set to have progressed to this role. So Valio Foods, I think a lot of you are probably familiar with, but they have quite a few of the very well-known brands in Ireland, and I suppose fundamental Irish brands like Bachelors, Odlums, we've Kelkin, Jacobs, Chef, Roma. So there's really well-known brands there. So it was really important for me that I had an understanding and appreciation of not just innovation and insight-led development, but also the brands, the global branding, marketing. All of those skills and modules that I had covered in the course are really coming into play now in my day-to-day work. So I suppose just to wrap up in terms of where I'm at now, I think the course and the challenges within the course really equipped me both, I suppose, in terms of the academic point of view and also the hands-on practical point of view, to be able to apply the learnings to the real world and to the real working situation for my day-to-day work, and then also helped me, I suppose, personally develop life skills that I will bring with me, not just to the workplace, but in terms of everyday life, looking outside the box, thinking sort of outside my comfort zone a lot, and just looking at the world almost in a different way, constantly questioning why things are the way they are and maybe how they could be improved. So I think overall the course has benefited me professionally and personally, and it is definitely something that I would encourage 100% anybody who is interested to apply for and to take this step in their future. So I think that kind of covers off my points.
No, that's fabulous. Thank you very much indeed, and a very interesting narrative from application now to your new job. Do you mind if I ask you, now that you're, in a management position at the entity, you're still, those connections that you've made, say with the academics, people like myself and Trevor, and with, more importantly, with Board BIA, that's still a network you can draw on.
For sure. I think that network created through the university and through Board BIA, I think it cannot be underestimated, the benefit, and especially in Ireland and especially in the food industry, of connections and networks, and the ability to be able to have that, have the relationships with various stakeholders in academia, and then in the practical environment, the working environment in terms of the food industry. I think we were privileged, really, I have to say, and I think in terms of the next cohort of the course, it is a privilege to be involved in a module that is so heavily connected with Board BIA, with their thinking house, with all of the resources that Board BIA offer the food industry, and then within even my fellow students, we all keep in touch. We've all kind of, some of, as you say earlier, have some of the students have stayed within the companies that they were in, and some have moved on. So even within that very small cohort, as it were, of 9 or 10 people, we're all still in contact, and we will continue to kind of touch base with each other. And I think that is really invaluable, because in terms of 5 years' time, 10 years' time, I think those links and those connections are what will make, I suppose, what will help our careers grow, but also help to create a long-standing network between us. So I think it's definitely a big plus for the course, in my opinion.
Great, thanks a million, Orla. So, Sarah, would you mind unmuting to see who's got a couple of questions for Orla? Well, there seem to be a lot of domestic noises, but not too many questions going out.
Hi there, my name is Lisa.
Aoife, hi.
Hiya. Orla, I'd be really interested to know what do you do now as part of your job in Vallejo Foods? So I can see you're an MPD manager, but I'd be kind of curious as to what that is.
So in terms of the role that I'm in Vallejo Foods now, it's essentially it involves managing the new product developments, so the branded projects and the branded new product development from essentially concept through to launch. So NPD encompasses quite a few different areas, and not just innovation and not just new products, but also, I suppose, we're dealing with procurement, we're dealing with quality, we're dealing with manufacturers, whether it be in Ireland or further afield, and then we're dealing with the packaging, the production and the launch, including, I suppose, branding and comms. So new product development kind of encompasses all of that. And my role within Vallejo, then, we are working at the moment on towards a 3-year pipeline. So it's generally new product development, you'd have a pipeline for maybe 1, 2, 3 years more, and what I do sort of manages the process, and then I get the privilege, I suppose, of working in a really fabulous marketing team with branding and innovation and insights colleagues. So there's a lot of kind of cross-function there as well in that role. So for sure, in terms of my learnings from the masters, this is a role that I definitely feel that the masters has contributed to my ability to manage this role. So I think it's a nice mixture of what I would have done previously and then applying what I learned in the masters to what I'm doing now as well. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, hi, Ola. Yes, thank you for your very useful sharing. So I would like to have a question that you said that you had already 7 years before applying for the course.
Yes.
So for me, until this May, I have like 2-year experience in agriculture sector. So the course, whether it prefer the participants with a higher experience, or they will have any chance for anyone like me with years in experience in agriculture sector or food industry.
So I suppose I can probably answer part of that, and then I think Peter might be able to hopefully answer the part about the current the recruitment criteria. But I suppose from my point of view, I had that amount of industry experience, but for sure there were others on the program who maybe had industry experience but not necessarily in innovation. There was participants on the course who had very recently graduated from their undergraduate, so wouldn't have had as much experience. So there was a wide variety of experience levels in my cohort, but I think the thing that kind of bound us all together and the element that made us all similar was the love of food, the love of the Irish food industry, the love of creativity, and maybe trying to think outside the box and look at how we could contribute to growing and adding to the Irish food industry. So although we maybe didn't have as much, there wasn't a commonality all in terms of experience, I think definitely our commonality was our love of food, and that's what that was I presume it was a key criteria in terms of the recruitment. But maybe Peter might be able to to indicate, I suppose, in terms of levels of experience and that. I'm not sure how that's working for this intake.
Sure, thanks, Orla. Let me, I suppose, explain it in two ways. What would be a terrible outcome for us would be to take somebody in and make the board be an investment in them and find that after 6 months or 9 months, they felt that it wasn't for them, that their passion for the food industry was not sufficient to withstand the realities of working in one of these places. So we're definitely trying to offset, diminish any possibility of that. We want people who are creative and yet who are resilient. Because I think it's worth thinking about that many of the people who came on the program the last time maybe had roles where they were being paid more than the bursary that was afforded them when they joined the program. So they could have been making 30 or 40,000 and they came onto a program which they were making 20. And they were working alongside people in companies like Kerry and Glanbia who were earning more. And often they were doing the equivalent. But in a way, it's an apprenticeship that makes them eligible for to leapfrog into a fabulous career in the future. So we want to make sure that we find people who really want that investment in their career and are prepared to endure a fair bit of hard work, both in the company and on the modules, and for the possibility for the promise of a strong, unparalleled credentials for that industry in the future, people who aren't going to leave the industry. So ideally then, so that's what we don't want to happen. We don't want people to leave the program early. What we do want are people who have experience of enterprise, of being creative, of working in innovation, or in some area where there is an element of innovation, which could be in loads of different things. Generally, those people have to come into a firm, and in Orla's case, this was definitely the case, where is already a team who have a certain way of working, and who may put up some level of resistance to somebody new coming in who apparently knows better. So we've sort of offset that a little bit this time around. But at the same time, I think if you're very, very young, very inexperienced, then you may not have the confidence to be able to bring people with you on a journey, or to persuade people of the appropriateness of, or to frame things in the way that you need to. So we've thought very carefully around people that we're thinking of, people who are maybe around 25 to 27, but not exclusively those people, who have a little bit of experience, but have a strong passion for the industry and some level of experience that will stand to them in creativity, marketing, innovation, new product development, any of those sort of areas. Now, there will, of course, be exceptional candidates. If that's the sort of channel that we're aiming at, there will be people who fall on either side of that, who will have exceptional qualities in other ways. And so we're not suggesting that those people don't apply. We want to hear from as many people, but that's essentially the perfect candidate for us, but not necessarily the only candidate.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, well, Orla, thanks a million for that. Very interesting and great to hear how things are going. And actually, I didn't know Valio had all those cool brands.
Yeah.
I'll be paying a lot
You're
more.
welcome. No, pleasure. Thanks a million. Thanks for having me, and the very best of luck to everyone applying for it. If I could have one final word, I would say definitely take the leap of faith. And if I could do it all over again, I would. And there's never any harm in getting an application in and seeing where it takes you. So the best of luck to everybody, and the best of luck with the course this year.
Thanks a million, Orla. So are there any other questions for Rory, myself, or Orla before we close out?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Mr. Peter and Miss Ola. I have already heard of your sharing, but I want to ask more like, is there any opportunity for the like fresh graduate or also in 3 years experience? How about the internship and part-time job? Is that included? And the last question is like, if we can choose our work placement or the university will arrange it. Thank you.
Okay, hi. Well, again, I'll answer the second part first. The work placements are arranged, bless you, are arranged entirely by Board BA. And the companies are carefully selected, and the student is given a role and a partner company. So you don't have, there's no requirement on the student to do anything about that. The other piece, of course, if we're looking at a CV that has that hasn't got much experience, we will look at part-time work and stuff like that. But we are ideally looking for people with a level of experience that can boost their performance when they go into a company on day one. But if that experience is just part-time, we will of course look at it.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, thanks for your sharing. I have one question I would like to ask. So in the application, it's only require a CV and a cover letter. Do I need to attach along with certificates, transcripts, and other degrees if needed?
Not at this point. As we go through the applications, if there are issues around certificates, yeah, when we get to the stage where we'll be thinking of calling people for interview, we will be asking for those. So you don't need to send them in now, but it would be good for you to know that you could get them, you could access them reasonably quickly should we get in touch with you about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, if there are no further questions, I do want to thank you all for your patience and your silence, and then your good questions and your engagement. We'll place a recording of this up on our website so that if any of the slides or anything like that you want to have a look at it at some time in the future, they will be available for you. And our advice is to send your application to boardba@dcu.ie, and we look forward to dealing with you after that.
Great.
So thank you very much, everyone. Very nice to see you all.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.